Hello everybody, welcome back to the Lord of the Rings The Third Age walkthrough. In the last video we took care of the evil mode for East Eminent Gullies, and I think I must have equipped the items. Granted, they're not... you know, in the last video I actually said that they weren't that great. They kind of are. I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess what they're gonna do for you is... kind of shore up any weaknesses your characters might have. So in all honesty, I guess maybe you might want to do that evil mode more than once. Totally up to you, but I definitely can see that being something that would be useful. I vaguely remember when I was going through this point in the game, there was a lot of characters that had just random like weaknesses to. We'll just say slashing. Slashing seemed to be a common one. And I don't know if that was partly because of you know, the particular items that I had equipped. So yeah, that's one of the other things that you have to keep in mind. Sometimes when you're like me, anyway, I was going for really high speed as well as a lot of spirit on a couple of these characters. And that being said, sometimes the items that I picked may not have had the you know, resistances that some other pieces of equipment did. And so yeah, so you just have to keep that in mind. Basically, you know, the one kind of cool thing about that evil mode is, you know, you can do it multiple times and you can kind of shore up your weaknesses or any you know, particular weaknesses that you might have. So anyways, long story short, I didn't mean to downplay those items from the evil mode. Is, you know, they can be good. They can, and like I said, they can kind of shore up some of your weaknesses. And we're actually gonna get another character here. I believe it's this first, yeah, right as we walk into this area. And you'll notice she's got a couple of pretty glaring weaknesses right away. And you know, that some of those elf stones can really help out with that.
Hurry! A warrior is trapped here!
Alright. Let's do it. Morwen cannot be removed from this battle, so once you get to her, just keep that in mind. And look at that. She almost got one shot from whatever that orc. Yeah, any two attacks and she's toast. And that's okay. I mean, you know, I think that's one of the major gripes with Morwen, sorry, is that you know, she's just not, I mean, she's not tanky at all. She's got a really low constitution stat. And then on top of that, her armor is really severely lacking in the armor department. Which, you know, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of her thing, though. You know, that's her role is to be like a stealthy, almost like a glass cannon, I'd say. Unfortunately, though, with that being said, and this was such a bad move. Yeah, and well, that's the good thing about having a stone shield on her. Anyways. So, you know, like I said, she's a total glass cannon. It is cool, though, that she gets to steal items. That's, I don't know, it's neat. I mean, I don't know that, you know, you can, I mean, you can go the rest of the game and never use it, never steal a single item from an enemy, and you'll do just fine. But, there are some items, though, from certain enemies that are one-time only, so, and, you know, that's the only way to get them. So, you know, still cool. Still cool. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. I guess one of the ways you can kind of overcome her weakness, I wouldn't say that that putting points into Constitution is a good idea. You can, and that may help you out somewhat, but the way I typically build is really the opposite. I don't like to go with more survivability. I like to go full out offense, so obviously I'm not going to be putting any points into her constitution whatsoever. I've mentioned it before in, you know, a couple other videos, and that's that you can really do whatever you want in this game, and you're going to do just fine. There's always, you know, I don't know, benefits to building different ways. That being said, though, I believe what I end up doing with her is building mostly speed and dexterity. I don't know about the speed. I kind of maybe went a little bit overboard on this particular playthrough on the speed, but the dexterity, you really want her to land stuff. That's, again, there's nothing more frustrating in this game than, missing multiple times in a row.
I can only kill them once.
Is this your village?
It was. Most are dead. Many of my friends and family have fled this place. Where are they bound? I know not. Perhaps the ford? And south to Edoras.
That is our road.
Then you may join me. I must find them. What do you carry that makes you worthy? Wrath. Ruin. A few trinkets. That is all that remains of my life here.
Uh-huh, okay. Well, I noticed that she's not equipped with Wrath or Ruin, so that's kind of weird. Oh, man, I'm so bad. Hey, maybe that's her axes. Maybe that's what she named her axes. Oh, my sense of humor is absolutely terrible. All right, anyways. Back to Morwen. All right, so there you go. Armor, 72. Constitution, all right, we're looking at 40, 41. Granted, these are base stats, and I'm not sure what level she is here. Probably 30. I'm gonna guess 35. Oh, boom! Nailed it. All right, so you got a bunch of points that you get to stick into wherever you want. I went straight speed. I don't know. Best decision, maybe not. But that being said, she does have a ton of catching up to do with the rest of the characters. Elfstone of Nimble Crafting is actually, honestly, best on her. Reason being, she's got a couple of passives that increase the, or maybe I should say reduce the, I don't know, the reuse time of her crafting abilities. Meaning, she can craft things faster. I don't know. I already had, what's-his-face, Barathor has all the crafting that I'm ever going to need. So I'm not going to bother. I am not going to go through all that again. That's just crazy. Otherwise, I think that a couple of armor-enhancing elfstones are good on her. As well as, again, if there's... I don't remember what she's got. I want to say that she's, like, weak to... Boy, it's like piercing or slashing or something right away. So you can kind of cover up that issue with an elfstone, if you've got it. Otherwise, if you don't, you can, like I said, you can always do that evil mode again. I'm not sure if I went actually into her, I guess, resistances screen. Here we go. Yeah, very weak against slashing. So that would be a good elfstone to put on her, would be an elfstone of slashing defense. Unfortunately, I think multiple characters I had that issue. So I may just be taking the elfstone off of somebody that actually needs it and putting it on her, anyway, I don't know. Anyways, again, just if that ends up being the case, do the evil mode again and get another one. It's easy enough. Problem solved. Anyways, let's see. What else to speak about her? Her strengths obviously are... Okay, number one, she's got a passive that boosts her strength and a passive that boosts her dexterity. So that's pretty awesome. I think that's, and I think the way that those passives work are percentages. So basically when you give her more strength and more dexterity, she gets more out of it, I guess. I guess that's how I would describe it. At least that's my understanding. Who knows? I could be wrong. But I don't believe I stuck a single point of strength on her this entire game. Again, good idea or not, I'm not really sure. I don't know. In all honesty, I just rarely use her. Oftentimes, I just bring her in to steal items, and then, she leaves. So, the only stat that really, benefits from that is her dexterity. So, I do go heavy dexterity on her as well as speed in this playthrough, and I think it worked out okay. I think the problem with her is just that her damage isn't, I don't know, it's just not as, good. Yeah, I'll just say it. We'll just leave it as that. It's just not as good as somebody like Hadhod or Barathor. And I don't know. I just don't know if it's not really an issue. I guess I don't really use her enough to have that, be that much of an issue. That being said, though, so what are her? All right, so her other benefits, though. All right, she's got all kinds of different thief skills. That's kind of cool. She can steal strength, steal dexterity, and those are, unfortunately, those are only temporary. So those will only last for that particular battle. So in all honesty, I don't really get a whole lot of use out of those, to be honest. And then what else does she have? She's got a battle haste. That's pretty nice. So the cool thing about battle haste is not only is it like a really quick self haste. The other cool thing about it is it's cheap. I believe it's only 25 AP. And then on top of that, she still gets points in her like dual axe craft tree when she uses that. So she is one of, well, she may be the only one. I guess Idriel still counts. Okay, anyways. There are very few characters, maybe we'll just say it that way, that can use skills out of a tree that don't actually do any damage. So her, or with Morwen, again, it's battle haste. So that means that she could actually sit and farm, the same enemy over and over, or sorry, keep spamming that in battle over and over, and she will be able to continuously gain SP in that tree. Now, the other, like I was saying earlier, Idriel is kind of similar, but not quite as good. But she can use leeching, or what is it, leeching blow or leeching strike or something like that. Here, let's check it out. Leech inspiration. There we go. That's the name of it. Anyways, and that won't actually deal damage. Unfortunately, it will break things like sleep, whereas battle haste does not. You don't interact with the enemy whatsoever. So Morwen is probably the easiest to gain, a melee type tree's abilities with. Hopefully that makes sense. Other than that, her other skill called Seize Skill in her thief tree is actually quite useful as well. So what that's going to be, or what that's going to do for you is it's not only going to use, a thief craft ability, so you'll get, a point for that, but she also, quote unquote, steals a skill point from the enemy that she then puts into her dual axe craft. So it's very unique because you are actually learning skills in both trees at the same time. So it's kind of neat. So if you want to try to skill her up, I'd suggest doing that. A really good combo with that actually is the fear skill, as fear will help her connect on that that seize skill. You can toss in company valor. And seize dexterity once you actually learn it, and that should help her actually, be successful in those attempts. I think, again, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to me that a feared enemy, you will never miss on them. So, I guess, like I said, that's a good way to, learn those abilities. And that kind of applies to other characters as well. If you're trying to level up somebody's, we'll say Barathor's sword skills, for instance, you can cast fear on the enemy, as long as they're not immune to it. And then, unfortunately, though, for him, what you're going to want to do is equip like a really crappy weapon, so you're just not doing as much damage. And that's another great way to farm up skill points. Anyways, wow, we got off on a little bit of a tangent there. So back to Morwen and her skills. That kind of sums up her thief tree. She does have a skill called Cloak of the Plains or something like that, and I haven't messed around with that much. My impression though is she cannot be attacked while she's in that. I don't know if you call it a form, but well, let's do it here. Thiefcraft. Cloak of the Plains, hide for a short time. So I don't know if that means that she can still take actions or not. I should actually test that out, and maybe I'll have that answer for the next video. But that can potentially solve some of her tankiness issues, I suppose. Because again, she can't be attacked while you're using that. So I don't know. Again, I haven't played around with it much, but that could potentially help you out, or her out, I should say. And then on top of that, all right. So let's talk about some more of her the good stuff. She gets 2 really good bleeds, for sure. All right, let's see here. Dulax Craft. So she gets poisoned wounds, which is awesome. And then she gets twin wounds, and those, they actually stack. So I think just like everything else, you know, cleaving wound and I don't know what Idril's wounding, is it wounding strike or something like that? Anyways, the kind of like the damage over time effects, those both stack. And then so paralyzing wound, my impression is that's a bleed as well, which also paralyzes an enemy, so they won't be able to take any melee actions. Now, I mean, so my impression is all 3 of those will actually stack. So maybe when I think of Morwen, I guess maybe I just don't think of her the right way, and that or maybe not just me, maybe everybody needs to kind of rethink the way that Morwen or the way you perceive her damage. There we go. That's a better way to describe it. And what I mean by that is, okay, yeah, so her Rohirric Rampage is a 6 strike attack, and that's great. That's really cool. The problem is, you know, in comparison to other characters, her weapons aren't as strong, so her damage ends up not being as good. Well, that being said, though, you know, she's got some really great, you know, paralyzing wound, twin wounds, poison wounds, really, really great damage over time skills. So that's kind of one of the things that, you know, I think maybe people kind of forget about, is that you don't always just necessarily want to have, you know, these combos that seem to be doing sick damage, you know, like, hey, that's great for when you're trying to take down crappy little goblins and stuff. But when you're fighting some of the enemies that just have a ton of health, bleeds are going to be insanely helpful. And, you know, again, I think that maybe the role of Morwen needs to be really actually looked at a little bit better. And what I mean by that is, in a long drawn out fight, what you can actually do is bring her in, toss up her wounds on the enemy, and then have her just leave, you know. And then, you know, in all honesty, her damage, you know, is still prevalent even though she might not be on the field.
Your riders gather near Helm's Deep. Eomer will join you there.
All right, so nice little scene there. Gather at Helm's Deep, blah blah blah. Anyways, back to Morwen. Yeah. So again, I feel like maybe when you look at Morwen initially, you're like, oh, okay, well, even her best combo isn't as good as, or doesn't do as much damage as like somebody like Barathor. But it doesn't need to. You know, that's not the only thing she's bringing to the table. So again, you know, I think you know, try out those bleeds, give those a rip on. You know, some enemies that have a ton of health, and just I guess use her for, I guess, what she's good at. I guess we'll leave it at that. Maybe the other thing I actually do want to add on top of all that too is that I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, I'm gonna have to test this out myself, but if her bleeds are or behave the way your other characters do, they typically are based off of your spirit stat. And if that's the case, something like the cracked elf stone, of spirit enhancement will increase the damage of her bleeds. So that's yet another, you know, kind of neat thing about her that you might not know. And I believe that is from, what is it? It's one of the Moria. I think it's one of the Moria evil modes. So you know, you can get as many of those as you want. If you're short at this point, you can always pick a couple more up. And yeah, so that could potentially help you out with her damage as well, with her bleeds anyway. All right. Anyways, back to it. We'll talk a little bit more about that fun stuff in the next video, I suppose. Once I actually get some concrete answers, I'll do a little testing in between making videos here. It's always fun, huh? Boy, he's doing okay damage even with Guardian Strike. One's got 4 cover. That's pretty impressive. And I believe in this area, pretty sure it's this area anyway, the next incarnation of Nazgul are here. And I know I've got some footage. Well, I should say I hope I've got some footage of that. Unfortunately, the Nazgul here have a ton of health, like way more than the Nazgul in the East Emnet Gullies. And probably the real drawback is they just don't give as much experience. They're actually really crappy. And then I don't remember what item they have as far as stealing. I think it's just Sauron blood as well. So I don't know. Is it? I guess I don't know. You can run around and get into fights with them, and you can at least try them out and see what you think, or at least check them out and see them. But anyways, I don't think that this is necessarily a good farming place. Again, because they just have so much health and they just don't really give you that much experience. So, anyways, let's keep going. So this whole area, I guess maybe it wasn't such a bad idea to bring this up now, but it's kind of circular. You start out, obviously, so you've got the very entrance, and then the next screen up is kind of Morwind's village, and then you can actually either go, I don't know if it's north and south or if it's east and west. Anyways, there's 2 pathways out of her village. I always take this way first. I'm not really sure why. I don't think it actually really matters though either. I think you can kind of really go any way you want. But I suppose this way does seem a little bit shorter. The other path leads you through some caves. Excuse me, and I don't know. They're fairly easy to navigate. Maybe, I guess you could argue that they're actually probably the toughest caves to navigate in the entire game, just because they are so big and there's so many different pathways. But anyways, typically what I do is if I'm trying to get from one side of this area to the other, I take this path. I don't go through the caves. And again, maybe that's why. Boom! Take that, Black Speech. Turkeys. Alright, was that a random fight or was that... no, I'm not sure. I think that was a random fight, actually. Pumping up that speed. Hey, look at all these guys weak to Pierce. Pierce Brosnan, probably, because he's so dreamy. I got nothing. Alright. Seems like this... here it is. I knew I had footage of one somewhere. So here he is, and these guys are only fought if you... well, they're only randomly fought here in the random encounters. You'll never actually... run into these guys unless you're kind of going out of your way to fight extra enemies. Anyways, yeah, let's miss. That's great. I love seeing that. Love having those misses. And she's at what is she at? Around 100 dexterity right now. So that's pretty extreme to still be missing. The cool thing, obviously, about these guys is they can be crippled. And I believe that's really the only thing that they're weak against, or sorry, vulnerable to, maybe I should say. I don't think they can be stunned. They can't be feared. And I don't think Suffocate Evil lands on them either. Man, look at these misses. Oof, so bad. So that's the other problem. Since they can't be feared, I can't seem to land. You know, the probability that I'm going to be able to land, you know, steals and stuff is not as great. I'm really surprised, though. She's got a ton of dexterity. I mean, in all honesty, 100 seems like a lot at this point in the game. But, you know, apparently not. Apparently it's not enough. And I'm not sure here if I probably looked away for a second and missed whether or not I have Valor on my characters. Obviously, that'd be a good thing to have. Yeah, Sauron blood. That's not worth stealing. That's crap. I can craft that myself and not miss 15 times. All right. Anyways, we're not actually doing any damage to this thing because I've just been crippled the entire time. Yeah. Okay. So it looked like Valor was on. So I was still missing even with Valor on. That's a shame. Low down dirty shame. And I don't know why I'm doing this. So I would not recommend doing like C's skill on these guys. Obviously they're much more evasive than any of the other enemies in this area. So I don't think that it's definitely not a good time to like, you know, work on Morwyn's abilities. In all honesty, I guess if you're gonna do something like, nice, learn capture strength though. If you're gonna use something like C's skill a bunch, you actually may be better off running or traveling back to like, you know, one of the previous areas where, there you go, there it's immune to fear, where you're, you know, less likely to miss because that's just a waste of time. You know, you're just wasting AP and time on, you know, trying to land something that's just really hard to land. Capture strength here, like I mentioned earlier, that's, I don't know, in all honesty, I don't use that a whole lot. I can see certain fights where it's more useful than others. Any type of boss fight or anything that's got a ton of health, you know, it makes sense. You know, if you're gonna, I guess if you're actually gonna be using Morwen though. Or any skill, or sorry, any fight where there's multiple enemies, or like where the fight is drug out because of, you know, waves essentially of enemies. So that's another time where I guess you could say it's kind of useful, but anyways, I typically, I'll be honest, I really don't use it that much. There you go. Now she's really starting to land him. I don't know. Maybe that was, I don't know if that was Valor being put on. I'm not really sure. I would still not recommend doing this though, here anyway, on this enemy. C's skill, that's just, I don't know, it's a waste. Anyways, let's start doing some damage here. I'm not sure what these guys were actually weak against. Loudwater Fury, 6k, that seems alright. Big whiff. That's kind of to be expected from Barithor, I suppose. It wouldn't have been a bad idea to get some bleeds going on this guy. Crippling smash, or sorry, not crippling smash, wounding. Whatever. I forget the names of all of the skills. It's hard to keep them all straight. Idriel's got one. Hadhad has one right now too. Oh wow, okay. I think I had way less health than I remembered. Anyways, alright, so 38k. I guess that's alright experience for a single enemy. It's actually probably on par with the Nazgul, if I remember right. I got something like, what was it, 118 or 118k for each of my characters. I don't know. Again, though, that fight is, or in the gullies, those Nazgul there are much easier to take down. But, you know, whatever. Alright, let's just... I love when these things die to the dot, too. They just kind of like choke and fall over. It's actually surprising how many enemies die to the dot in this playthrough. I guess the damage was just not quite enough to one-shot him with the initial damage. So oftentimes, you know, they'll just die and have that funny animation. All right, anyways, let's keep moving. This is a fixed fight here. This is kind of an interesting setup here, if I remember right. Yeah, you got the archer in the back, kind of hanging out on the tower. It's nothing. He's nothing fancy. And then we've got a caster, a dual wielder, and the guy with the shield. I don't remember what these guys can do specifically. I don't remember if the shield guys can stun or if they can cripple. I don't know. But they're not gonna live long enough to do anything anyway. And this is kind of what I mentioned with the. Ooh, look at that. That's impressive damage still. So I'm betting that Berethor no longer is equipped with a shadow protection elfstone. I forget the name of that. Probably like the cracked elfstone of shadow protection. Anyways, he takes a ton of damage. But this is what I was talking about kind of with the other video is now this is kind of how a lot of these fights are gonna play out. I'll just end up, there you go, Rohirrim Leather Tassets for Morrowind. There's new armor upgrade. But anyways, you know, that's how these fights, a lot of them play out, where I just hit him with Wheel of Fire or Black Speech, and that kind of just ends it. Which, I don't know, it's kind of nice for the playthrough continuity. I feel like it, you know, chops down on the timing a bit. But, especially once I hit Osgiliath, it may get a little, I don't know, it kind of seems a little repetitive, maybe a little lame. I'm not really sure. But, you know, I guess that's just kind of how it goes. And I'm not sure why I'm just standing around here. Probably got up to, I don't know, do something. My house was probably burning down. Probably not. It's still here. Anyways, yeah, so, you know, I don't know. It ends up being, you know, a lot of spamming those same abilities, and they're not even necessarily the, you know, the abilities that your character would normally have. But, you know, again, I went the spirit route for a reason, and this is kind of where it all starts to pay off. All right, it looks like, oh no, actually it looks like I'm kind of going to end this commentary here, so. Anyways, I hope this guide is helpful, and hope you guys keep watching, so thanks for joining me.